Tonight, the budget fallout, the pound hitting a new low, and tax cuts which leave Scots out of pocket, branded morally abhorrent and fiscally reckless.
We have a UK economy in crisis, in freefall right now, and an ideologically driven Prime Minister and Chancellor that seem oblivious to the damage that they're doing to millions of ordinary people.
Labour Scottish leader branded Liz Truss worse than Margaret Thatcher and said Scots would help the party win the next general election.
And celebrating 30 years of the vessel Discovery in Scotland.
I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Glasgow.
And I'm Emma Cameron in Edinburgh. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. The First Minister has branded Downing Street's plans to slash taxes as morally abhorrent and fiscally reckless, saying replicating them here would be the wrong thing to do. Markets have reacted badly to the Chancellor's plans, which were announced on Friday, and this morning the pound dropped to its lowest ever rate against the US dollar.
The changes mean Scots earning more than £15,000 will pay more income tax than people living in England. Opposition MSPs are warning that could scare off future investors if the Scottish Government doesn't follow suit. Here's our political reporter, Laura Alderman.
For some tourists in Edinburgh's shopping hotspot today, their cash is now going a lot further. After a raft of plans to slash taxes were announced by the UK government on Friday, the pound fell to a record low against the dollar this morning. Bad news for Scots going to the States, but American shoppers here are making the most of it.
So we're looking forward to experiencing some of that cost benefit. We're going shopping. Hopefully,
we're going shopping.
Hopefully she doesn't spend too much, but we will take advantage of it.
Yes.
We're trying to spend the pounds before we have to exchange them back in the U.S. So.
We're going to be here no matter what. So this is a bonus, so I might buy more. I don't know.
Well, we have so much room in the suitcase.
Yeah, that's true too.
For those in the travel industry, the falling value of the pound brings pros as well as big worries for the future.
We see the pound plummeting at this point in time is very good for stimulating demand, so that's good news. The only caveat on that is, of course, meeting that demand, and the supply chain still vulnerable, still some challenges within that, and obviously hoping that businesses will be able to stay open through the winter so that we can harness some of that demand that may yet still come for this year.
Although the pound has been falling against the dollar for months now, if it stays this low, then importing things that are priced in dollars, like oil, will become more costly. And that means that prices at the pumps could be pushed up once again. The changes announced by Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng include cutting the top rate of tax. But as income tax is devolved, pressure is mounting on Scottish ministers to do the same.
Apart from the most tribal supporters of this Tory government, most people think was morally abhorrent and fiscally reckless. It would, I think, be a serious error for the Scottish government to replicate in every sense that strategic economic mistake that the Chancellor made, but we'll take decisions that are right for Scotland.
An emergency budget review is expected at Holyrood soon, but opposition politicians warn higher taxes could mean higher earners leaving Scotland en masse.
I've actually had some personal emails from people across mid-Scotland and Fife saying, look, if we were in a situation where we're all having to pay more tax down south, we're going to have to think about relocating. That's not good news.
Tonight, some lenders are removing new mortgage products. The UK's largest lender, Halifax, Virgin Money and Skipton Building Society are all affected. Little reassurance this evening that the fluctuating markets can be soothed, with potentially more turmoil to come. Laura Alderman, STV News, Edinburgh.
Well, in the wake of Kwasi Kwarteng's tax cuts, the economy has dominated Labour's party conference. The Scottish Labour leader Anna Sarwar told delegates Liz Truss was more dangerous than Margaret Thatcher.
He claimed Scotland would help the party win the next general election. Well, our Westminster correspondent Catherine Sampson is in Liverpool for us tonight. And Catherine, in the last few minutes, we've heard that major banks have started withdrawing mortgage products. This cannot be good news.
Yeah, and I mean that just sets the context, really, the turmoil that this conference here in Liverpool is taking place against. Where the Chancellor may have remained pretty much silent today, the markets certainly have not. For Labour politically, this is timing for them. They are trying to pitch themselves as an alternative. They are trying to pitch themselves as more responsible, and they're trying to pitch themselves now as a government in waiting. Now, in terms of Scotland, Anas Sarwar, the Scottish Labour leader, he's been speaking in the Hall just a short time ago. He's trying to highlight the progress that Scottish Labour had made in the council elections back in May, saying they'd managed to push the Scottish Conservatives into second place there. And his message is, perhaps in part because of the cost of living crisis and everything that's going on now with Liz Truss, his party, which has found itself squeezed between the SNP and the Conservatives, was back in the fight. Here's what he had to say.
For more than a decade, the SNP and the Tories have stoked up bitterness, division and anger, creating a politics of us versus them. But conference, we know those days are numbered. So a message to the occupiers of Downing Street and Bute House: the clock is ticking. Our opponents will get more desperate, their tone more irrational, their attacks on us more unhinged. That's because they know what we know. The next electoral contest will not be a general election, and conference, Labour will win the next general election, and Scotland's going to deliver the seats to get us over the line.
Now, of course, that would be no mean feat, because Scotland so far only has one Scottish Labour MP. That is the Shadow Scottish Secretary, Ian Murray. We're going to be speaking to him later on Scotland Tonight. But I think, you saw in Anas Sarwar there, he captures a mood at conference this year. The party here is more buoyed up than they have been after all the, quite bitter divisions of the past few years. We're going to see Sir Keir Starmer giving his keynote speech tomorrow. You may remember last year he was heckled by members of the left while giving that speech. I don't think we're going to see that this year at this conference. There's a sense of the party trying to certainly present a more united front. I mean, the conference here also trying to pull, I think, itself more into the centre ground. It opened with a rendition of the national anthem, God Save the King, at the weekend, that passed off without protest. So, quite a change here with Labour. I suppose the challenge for them now is, can they really cut through with the public?
All right, Catherine from Liverpool, thank you. Now, a GP has warned the future of the NHS as we know it is at risk because of the number of her colleagues leaving the profession. Dr Nora Murray-Kavanagh, who's based in Edinburgh, says her practice has brought in a new approach to help tackle the huge backlog of patients.
It means extra support from those in other medical roles, such as pharmacists, mental health specialists and community workers. Vanessa Kennedy has been looking at the benefits for patients.
That was something that I never used to do. Now I do self-care a lot, and it's important.
When full-time mum Georgina started to struggle with her mental health, at first she was reluctant to go to the doctor. But she felt that every day was tough.
Just getting up and living, just dealing with the kids, going to bed, dealing with the kids, going to bed. I had no life. I didn't feel like I wanted, not to be here, but just life was just went on with it. There was no interest in life, no interest in people, nothing. And that's when I knew that there's something just wasn't right about the way I was feeling.
Because she attends this practice in Wester Hailes, she was referred to a mental health specialist within the surgery after just a week, something which has made a huge difference to her life.
If it was keep getting referred back to GPs, I would have done that silly, feeling like I was silly speaking to the same person all the time, but I didn't with Paul. So if anybody's referred right to that, that's ideal, rather than a GP.
Georgina was able to be seen so fast because her local GP has introduced a new way of working as part of a plan to improve primary care. The surgery has introduced a pharmacist, mental health specialist and a community worker to meet the needs of individual patients.
We now have a huge backlog, not only of patients who are presenting with symptoms for the first time, but also patients who are experiencing delays in secondary care treatment.
With demand for GPs at an all-time high, this doctor says without changes across the profession, there could be dire consequences.
We're already starting to see it. People are retiring earlier, people are resigning, people are changing their work pattern, and we won't have access to a free, publicly funded, high quality NHS at the point of use, and that would be such a huge shift for our country. It's virtually unimaginable for people to think what that would look like.
For now, new ways of working mean there's an increasing role for professionals other than the doctor.
It's very much about sort of supporting the patient to work at their pace. It can be anything from a local walking group to linking them in with the community garden, supporting them along to an appointment at a mental health service. It's really varied, and it very much depends what that patient brings to that first appointment, and we support them with exactly what they want to prioritise.
The Scottish Government says it's recruited more than 3,000 people to support GP services across the country, which it believes will make it easier for patients like Georgina to be seen more quickly. Vanessa Kennedy, STV News, Edinburgh.
Other stories across Scotland, and staying on health, the A&E department at Edinburgh's Royal Infirmary operated beyond capacity every day last month. A Freedom of Information request found its capacity of 40 patients was exceeded throughout August by an average of 200%, or 80 patients at any given time.
A young soldier from Bishopton died in a non-operational incident, the Ministry of Defence has confirmed. Conor Morrison of 23 Parachute Regiment died in July after suffering breathing difficulties. The 20-year-old commanding officer said he was a truly selfless soldier.
The Scottish Government is wanting the public to share their views on how best to get more people cycling. The 12-week consultation will assess Transport Scotland's plans to increase everyday cycling and develop safer biking routes. Every police fast response vehicle across Scotland will now be equipped with a defibrillator after a donation from the family of a teenager killed in a road accident 6 years ago.
Kieran McCandy's death in Murray led his family to launch a campaign to help ensure the equipment is close at hand whenever someone suffers a cardiac arrest. Our senior reporter Gordon Cree has the story.
For the parents of Kieran McCandy, handing over this life-saving equipment is their son's legacy. A keen mountain biker, he was 16 when he died after being hit by a car on a country road near Elgin. Since then, the family have raised funds for more than 200 defibrillators.
There's not even any words to describe how each day is without him. But the main aspect of his charity is to allow him to continue to live on and do something positive in his name, and hopefully by doing this it allows him not to be forgotten.
Until now, the AEDs have been distributed across the north of Scotland, where they've already saved 9 lives. Among them, McLean MacLeod. He had a cardiac arrest after a rowing training session in Findhorn earlier this year. 2 club members gave him immediate help.
Without the defib, I wouldn't be here. It brought me back to life, there's no question. The girls were aware of that as well. They knew I was gone, but they both said they were absolutely determined, they weren't giving up. So hats off, and a combined effort, because through the girls and through Kieran's legacy and the defib being on the wall, I'm here.
Now 56 kits are being rolled out to Police Scotland, taking the coverage across the country. Road policing officers are often the first people on the scene of a critical incident. Today's donation means all their cars will now be equipped with these defibrillators, a vital tool in helping them save lives.
The nature of policing is such that you never know what you've got to attend to, what you might come across on your journey or when you're on patrol. So absolutely, we are often the first on scene, or we can be called to incidents where this equipment will be life-saving indeed.
Kieran's mum told me this is a massive day for the charity, helping prevent other families needing to go through the loss they have. Gordon Cree, STV News, South Queensferry.
Now, a Glasgow woman is launching her own brand of nail polish after experiencing breathing problems when using nail product currently on the market. Kiana, who has spinal muscular atrophy, loves nothing more than giving herself a manicure, but says that her health issues make her sensitive to chemicals. Indigo Stafford reports.
Kiana was born with a rare genetic condition which causes her muscles to get weaker. Due to her spinal muscular atrophy, she requires a wheelchair and round-the-clock support.
I'm a very independent person, but I still need support to get up in the morning, go to the toilet, get breakfast, get dressed.
Even in the toughest of times, self-care has always been a pick-me-up for Kiana. But she discovered that beauty sometimes comes at a price.
One of the big impacts it has is my breathing is a lot weaker than the average person's. I used to use a lot of normal acetone nail polish, but every time I used it, I would feel short of breath. And I would spend the rest of the day not breathing as well. Eventually, I decided that my breathing and my health was more important.
Now Kiana has taken matters into her own hands. She is developing a new brand of acetone-free nail polish alongside her dad, who has been taking time out of his day job as a chemist.
It started with me home to my dad saying, "Dad, you're a chemist, sort it." But really after that it's a lot of hard work, a lot of testing, a lot of trials. But, I've actually realised while I've been working on the formulas that lots of people have an issue with acetone. I just wanted to look and feel better.
After testing out 50 different formulas, Cal Nail Paint will launch next year, and Kiana will be hoping that success is at her fingertips. Indigo Stafford, STV News.
Well, talking of weather, let's see how it's shaping up over the few days. Here's Sean.
A light drizzle is coming in from the west. TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
Well, our first real taste of autumn over the last couple of days. A chilly northerly airflow. The chestnut trees have been pretty busy in the last few days. Kids waiting for the biggest conkers to fall, and not just the kids, some of the grown-ups as well. I'm going to include myself in that. I was down at Chestnut Tree yesterday having a look, but most of them were gone. We cut off the coldest flow of air in the next couple of days, so our nighttime temperatures recover a wee bit through this week. Still quite chilly though, 6 or 7 degrees Celsius. Daytime temperatures probably coming up from the 12s, 13s we've got at the moment up to about 15, maybe even towards 16 degrees Sunday around the likes of Fife and also Falkirk. But for the time being, staying on that colder side. Now, the bulk of the showers today have been across the Highlands and Argyll, and it's here we'll hang on to them through tonight. Further inland, it's going to be a chilly night, clear, cold, and a wee bit frosty potentially in parts of Stirlingshire and also South Lanarkshire, where we'll see some of the lowest temperatures. Now, the bulk of those showers again tomorrow across northern and western parts. Most of the showers getting eaten up by the mountains across the Highlands, but one or two of them perhaps coming into the likes of Lanarkshire, around Glasgow, and also into Mid Lothian, East Lothian. But those showers should be quite scattered across most of the mainland, most frequent along the west coast, and still quite blustery. So expect, like today, there could be again some ferry disruption. But it will be quieter Wednesday and Thursday. Winds a lot lighter before we see very wet weather coming in on Friday, along with more strong winds.
TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
And finally, it's 30 years since the vessel Discovery took pride of place on Dundee's waterfront.
Yes, and since then, more than 2 million people have visited the iconic ship. Susan Nicholson has been speaking to those who helped get the boat in ship shape for visitors.
It was a short but significant voyage. The Royal Research ship Discovery moved from Victoria Dock in Dundee to her permanent home on the waterfront 30 years ago today.
I stood with my dad and watched the Discovery being towed in and making her final voyage. So it's incredible to now be able to be part of Discovery's story because I've seen it all the way through. That regeneration that was sparked by the Discovery coming back, that really is something that Discovery still stands for to this day.
Discovery was built in Dundee and launched in 1901 to carry Captain Robert Falcon Scott on his first Antarctic expedition. In 1986, she came back to the city. Then the work began to prepare her as a visitor attraction.
Myself and one of the apprentices were the first to work on the ship. It just puts a shiver up my spine every time I walk on board, because knowing where it's been, the brave men climbing up the top of these masts, what they went through, it's just phenomenal.
Discovery carried Dundee's name around the world, and on her return to the city, she has attracted visitors from far and wide, with 2 million people coming to see her since she made her final voyage here to Discovery Point. There are conservation challenges ahead. Major restoration work is planned.
to ensure part of Dundee's maritime history remains shipshape for generations to come. Susan Nicholson, STV News.
Oh, wonderful memories there. Well, that is all from us this evening.
Yes, from all of us here, enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.